Close
Sorry.
on any closed deals. That's right. And so obviously they're a brokerage, a real estate brokerage. That's why we can pay them a commission. They're a real estate brokerage that only generates leads for agents all over the country. And the lead quality I haven't felt like has been really very good. And so I didn't keep them for more than a year, but they did promise that I would be getting, 20 to 40 leads a month, and they're definitely delivering on those leads. I'm getting the number of leads that they promised me, but I felt like the quality of leads that I bought everywhere else was better. And so I haven't continued with them in 2021. I canceled after that year.
Right on.
In 2021, I had 3 months in the spring where I didn't sell any houses, which is really strange. I've never had that in my 10-year career. And so during those 3 months, I really was focused, on the basics again. I was like, oh, I need to focus on making sure I call everybody in my database every day, make sure I send out my text messages to the new leads. And I did that. And in June, I closed 5 transactions. And so that's just because I was focusing on the internet leads during that time. For some reason, my sphere didn't want to buy more houses. So it's just one of those things. I had to acquire new clients. So
Sure.
and somehow I ended up being my top earning year this year, and I was able to get to 19 units, even having 3 months of 0 units, which is pretty interesting. And part of that goes because the market's gone crazy, right? We're one of the few industries that really benefit from inflation, because as prices go up, the cost of the item we're selling goes up, and so we make more money. So
and there's a question about HomeSnap leads. Will the auto ads work with second list agents as well? So if I'm a second list agent, I pay for it. Do you know?
Yeah, the HomeSnap leads, if you're a second list agent, it will trigger the ads for you in HomeSnap when the deal closes.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can buy more ads too. So I just trigger the Facebook ad to be automatic. If it's a lower priced home, then I have it trigger the Instagram ad. And I've tried the Google ads, but I haven't got any leads from the Google ads on HomeSnap, and they're really expensive. I think it's like $200 or $300 for a Google ad. But I literally have gotten 0 leads from Google. So I haven't continued advertising on that part of the platform with HomeSnap. I don't know if it's a bug in their application or if I'm just unlucky or something, but.
So finding reliable lead sources. Let's talk about where you're getting. So you've identified some sources. We're going to review those on the next slide, but just in general, from a kind of a general methodology on finding reliable, sorting out what's a reliable lead source. How do you do that? How do I sort through all this gobbledygook?
Yeah, I am willing to try new lead sources. Generally, I start looking for new lead sources if there's a problem with a current lead source, like either lead volume's low or the people that you're calling just have no chance of buying a house, like they're looking for rentals all the time. And some lead sources do both rentals and regular leads, and I feel like sometimes they get those mixed up a little bit. And so if all of a sudden I'm getting a lot of rental leads on HomeSnap or something, then, I would start putting my money somewhere else. And I get a lot of cold calls, lead sources call me and they're like, hey, we have this great new product. And that's actually how I came across the mass texting application that I use. I used to use easy texting. And it was okay, but I had to pay 5 cents a text. And when you're sending thousands of texts, it kind of adds up. Well, there was a service called Field Notes. They claim to have the greatest CRM in the world, and I could text people. But what made me like them a lot is they do have tools to allow me to generate my own leads. I haven't taken advantage of that yet. I hope to this year. But they also gave me a real phone number that the text messages went from.
Instead of a short code.
Yeah, instead of a short code, yeah, they gave me a 10-digit phone number, and it's a local 509 phone number. And so I can, send 1,000 text messages from that phone number, and it doesn't immediately look like it's a spam message.
Right.
If somebody tries to call that number, they get a disconnected message, but they're a startup company, and so they assure me that forwarding that virtual number to my cell phone is definitely on their development plan, but I think there's some technical issues with that.
Sure.
So while they figure that out, that's
yeah. So how often, so on the slide here, we talk about like where the lead services are acquiring their leads. Can you speak to
that? Yeah, every lead source is grabbing leads, some of their leads, at least from Facebook. And so I do try to avoid places that claim that they have the best Facebook leads, because I feel like with the current laws in place, like there's not really a way to like make sure you can filter by like income level, or really you can only filter by location. So if I want Facebook leads, I have to say, hey, this is a real estate ad. I'm going to be buying or selling housing. I'm going to be buying or selling housing. So you have to check a box in Facebook. And as soon as you check that box, you no longer can filter by like, profession, right, or income level, or, credit level.
Qualify them through Facebook is what you're getting at.
Right. And so you're basically just going to get your ads are going to be pictures of houses, and people that are excited when they see a house are going to click on it, and it's going to generate a lead. And so,
kind of lower quality, higher volume, lower quality, you think?
Right. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, people who are getting evicted from their apartment have nothing to do but sit around and wish they could be in a house. And so they're clicking on every house they see, just hoping that they'll magically appear in it. So this is
perfect. Yeah, so good point.
You start getting those leads, you gotta do something else.
What about the Google leads on the
the Google leads are really great. zbuyer.com pays for a lot of Google ads, and so the buyers they're getting are people who are actually searching for something. Maybe they need to sell their home fast, or they need to buy a home, or they're moving to Spokane. So ZBuyer is out there optimizing their ads for these kinds of search terms. And this is what you would be doing if you were generating your own leads.
Sure.
But obviously, it's a totally separate skill set. And that's why there's companies that do nothing but make leads from that. Right. And so ZBuyer gets a lot of their own traffic sent to them by people clicking on Google ads that they generate. And so I feel like that's probably why those leads are such high quality.
Yeah. And so how often do you evaluate these? I mean, you say usually you only wait till there's a problem with something before you go jump to the next lily pad.
Yeah.
But do you ever tend to peel it back and kind of run the numbers on it and just see what your ROI is, or how do you do that?
Yeah, if all of a sudden I'm not making 5 times what I'm spending on my leads, then I definitely would not want to be paying for those leads anymore. And I think if I didn't do the numbers for this call, but with four sales, 4 of 19 last year being new internet leads, I don't know, it probably works out to about 20% of my income. And then it's probably closer to 35% of my income if we include the repeat business from the internet leads. Sure. And so that's a pretty substantial amount. I mean, that's,
you're probably spending like 1 to 2% of your income to get to that. Is that what you're thinking? Or
yeah, I think I'd spend. I'll have to look.
We actually have that slide.
We have a slide there, and so we can kind of get an idea. But I think it's around. So it's probably 10% of the total that I made. So I'm probably spending $3,000 or $4,000 on leads and lead systems to generate 35 to 40,000 of income. So that's well within that 5 times. That's almost 10 times. So
I think so. And then obviously the goal of this, you kind of have iterated this a couple times, is to get to a space where you are generating your own leads, right? And
yeah, that would definitely be ideal.
But so the lead sources that we've talked about and some other ones that we haven't, ZBuyer, for those, and this is kind of for our audience who's wondering like, okay, well, what do these guys charge and what do they, and can you give us an idea of kind of how, and this can be a rough estimate, but how many leads are you getting from each one of these typically? Like if it's per month or per use in HomeSnap?
Yeah, let's see. I've got.
It doesn't have to be exact.
What I got for ZBuyer here. Yeah, ZBuyer is a lot. I get most of the leads at the beginning of the month when I pay, as I think they run new ads every time I pay. Okay. But I've gotten 8 leads just yesterday. And okay. So that'll probably continue for, I don't know, a week or so. So I probably get 50 leads a month from ZBuyer. Yeah, which would be too many. Like if I was having to call all of those leads,
right?
Like that would be too many. But if all of a sudden ZBuyer goes out of business or their leads go to crap, I got to have other options. Right. And so that's why I make sure I'm running, multiple lead sources at the same time, because I never want to be in a position where I can't sit down and make calls to sell houses. Right. That's important to me.
Sure. And so set schedule, it's a flat yearly, and then they charge you 20% on top of it. So that one, right. I think you'd want to be like really looking at your numbers on that, because you're investing quite a bit of money once you calculate that
right.
referral fee in. And then HomeSnap you talked about with the $50 per listing and $50 per closing.
Yeah, so, and they have a new program too. I almost tried their new program. It was going to push my budget a little more than I wanted to spend in the next 6 months. But they have a new program for about $3,500, their concierge service. And you pay $3,500, and supposedly they send you leads with phone numbers who specifically mentioned they wanted to buy a home in Spokane and they wanted to talk to an agent. And I've seen a couple of posts to the agent Facebook group saying that they were paying for that and they were breaking even on it. So I think there's a good chance, like if you have that kind of budget, I think it's a good chance that you could get some good leads from HomeSnap that way. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm seeing some questions in the Q&A, and we're getting to those questions. So you're just a little ahead of us in the program. So just hang tight, Rich and CG. We will get to your questions, just so you know. So I am paying attention. What about somebody's like, well, what about Realtor.com and Zillow? Like what, how would you approach that? And there's maybe you're somebody just dipping your toe into this thing. What's your strategies there?
It's too expensive for me. If you go into, I'm not sure. Since I was a member of Zillow, I have an account with them. And so I could go in and start paying them again. But before I start paying them, I enter the zip code where I want to be advertising, and I enter how much I want to spend. And let's say I wanted to spend $2,000 a month. I would type $2,000 into the zip code, and I could actually see a list of all the agents that are paying for that zip code and where I fall in that list if I'm spending $2,000 a month. Interesting. And I'll tell you, I'm not very high up the list at $2,000 a month.
Wow.
So there's a lot of teams out there that are spending literally $20,000 a month on Zillow leads. And so at my production level, at 19, 20 houses a year, that's completely unrealistic. I wouldn't be interested in purchasing that. But where you can find, I think they're great leads. Like definitely most of the houses I sell today are people I met on Zillow years ago, before Zillow started doing the bidding process and it got expensive. And so I would definitely recommend Zillow or Realtor.com leads if they're affordable for you. Realtor.com is less expensive, but last time I was going to renew with them, I think it was $700 a month. and I was getting like 5 or 6 leads a month from them.
Ooh.
I did sell a house every year from a realtor.com lead set that they're, even if they were sending me just, 1 or 2 a month.
Right.
Over a course of a year, I did sell a house to them. But as soon as I broke even the 1 year, I quit using them. Yeah. It doesn't mean it's bad, right? Like if you live in a different area, or if you're buying, I bet you could buy a Zillow zip code for like little towns around Spokane, like Sprague or Rockford or Fairfield. I bet there's no competition there. Right. And so that you might be able to pick up for, $200 a month or something. Yeah. So it's worth having the conversation, but just don't let them bully you into something else. Just say, hey, this is my budget. What can I expect for that? And you should be able to get answers, on what you can expect for lead. And
you use social ad engine. I know, so that's a product that's specific to Coldwell Banker. Yeah. We've seen a lot of success with social ad engine, and it's a one-time, $129 a listing. And then I think the last time you did this, that you're generating for that $129, you're generating 50 plus leads for that. And what I can't remember what all information is included. Do you remember what did you get?
I think you can specify that you only want to get leads that have a name and phone number. Okay. And if you're a new agent, it's fine. It just adds a step to the process if you're only getting email address, because the goal is to get an in-person meeting and get people pre-qualified. Yeah. So if you're starting with an email address, then your first email to them is like, hey, thanks for using my site. I was going to give you a call today about some of those houses you liked online, but I didn't have your phone number. So then hopefully they send you the phone number, and then you give them a call and you say, hey, thanks for using my site. I'm glad I got your phone number. What did you like about these houses? Do you want to meet up and go see some of them this week or this weekend, whatever. And I feel like I sell enough houses now that I don't want that first step of the process where I have to work on getting a phone number. And so I only work with leads where I'm getting a name and phone number. And then I text them and I'm like, hey, I see you're interested in buying a home in the area. I'm running to an appointment right now, but I'll give you a call in 15 minutes. And then you'll know if they respond. They'll be like, no, don't call. I don't really want to buy a house. And then I'll call them. I'll be like, hey, I saw you weren't really going to buy a house, but I told you I'd call you in 15 minutes. So I'm giving you a call, But the great thing is if they respond, it's definitely somebody you want to call. A lot of times they'll respond, okay, sounds great. Or don't call me until 5. I don't get off work till 5. That's fine.
Whatever.
That's exactly what you want. So that's why I only work with people who have name and a phone number.
Got it. So what's a realistic budget, do you think, for somebody starting out? Like, I want to do this. I don't know, I don't know what I should budget, but what's a realistic budget, do you think?
If you're starting out and you have no leads and you have no sales, I really like expenses to follow revenue. And so ideally I would try and get listed as a second list agent on somebody else's listing in your office. There's no downside to anybody listing a second list agent, at least in our MLS in Washington. Sure. I don't know how it works elsewhere, but if you have a lot of listings, reach out to the new agents and just put them on there as second list agent so they can use it for advertising. And I think that's a way they can really, start to build statistics because that closing is going to show up in HomeSnap for them as well. Sure. And so it's going to give them credibility with other agents in the industry. So there's benefits more than just generating leads. Yeah. But as far as leads go, at least then you can buy an ad for $50. And I think it runs me about $6 or $7 a lead on HomeSnap because I'm going to get, 4 or 5 leads from that ad. And then which is fine when you're new, right? Because you're going to spend the time to call them. And so you call the leads, and I think that's a great way to do it. We should, a great way is to look for free leads. So you don't have to start spending money right away. If you can, everybody's looking for a lender partner, right? There's plenty of lenders out there looking for partners. And so if you contact your lender and just ask them if they have old leads, lenders pay hundreds of dollars per lead. Again, I haven't used it in a long time, but the way Zillow used to do it with lenders is they had something called a long form. And so you can call lenders and just say, hey, I'm making a bunch of phone calls next week for buyers. Can you send me your old long form leads? And they'll usually say something like, oh my God, I forgot I even had those. And they can generate a report in Zillow that has the names and phone numbers of everybody who filled out a long form. And when they send that to you, it'll actually have the amount of money they spent for those leads. And the last lender who sent me a list of about 40 leads, they had paid over $5,000 for those leads. And so I just called through, and some of them were 2 years old, but people start thinking about buying a home years before they actually buy a home.
Yeah, 9 to 21 months is the average, I think. Yeah.
So I just went through the list, called everybody, and I pulled a sale out of that list right away. I mean, these are people who filled out names, social security number, everything for the lender.
Right.
Right. And so you just get their name and phone number and you call them. I mean, they did a lot of work to fill this out at one point. And the conversation is something like, hey, a while back, you were looking to buy a house on Zillow. And I was just wondering, did you ever buy a home? And they'll be like, no, I got busy, or I lost my job because of COVID. So I got to look into that this year. And you're like, heck yeah, let's meet up. And so then you meet up and you get them pre-qualified again. And so that's kind of the whole thing. Like, my whole thing is just to meet somebody in the office. And we're not going to talk a lot about houses in the office. I mean, be like, yeah, tell me what you're looking for. 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, open concept, right? Same thing from everybody. And so you're like, oh yeah, that sounds great. Here, why don't I pull up the lender form and you can get pre-qualified? Because that's my goal. Like, as soon as they got that pre-qualification letter, like, they can call me any time of the day or night. I answer my phone. But until then, it's just like, oh yeah, that sounds great. Let's get pre-approved, you know?
Right. So, and we're going to get that in a second. So you think, and we talked about this, so like $300 a month-ish is pretty realistic, do you think, to get a return on that investment if you're spending
$300 a month? That's not going to be that much in a year. It's going to be what, $3,500 a year? Yeah. So I think that's pretty reasonable to expect.
And you talked about, contacting your lenders, see if they have old internet leads that you can follow up on. It doesn't have to be Zillow, it can be anything, frankly. Busy agents, right? Busy agents. Yep. We have agents in our office who are just like, I don't know, I get all this stuff and I don't know what's going on. And those might be direct GMG leads. Those could be other leads that they have from other sources. So there could be some opportunity with those busy agents. And the nice thing is those are all for free. And frankly, those busy agents, what would your approach be to, let's say I'm super successful busy agent and I'm not making phone calls to anybody, they're just calling me. Right. How are you going to approach me to get my leads?
Well, assuming that you're buying leads,
okay.
Basically, I would just ask. I would say, hey, I'm looking to start converting internet leads, but I don't really have a budget yet until I start selling houses. Could you forward me some leads? And like, I've just taken like 50 to 100 of my old leads and just given them to new agents just so they can call through them. And because I have about 2,200 leads in my database now. And so if I take, 100 of them from the bottom of my database that I haven't called in a while, but they haven't been marked as trash, they haven't responded. The ones who get marked as trash, by the way, are the ones that say, stop calling me. I'm never buying a house from you, or I already bought a house. I don't want to talk to you. I have an agent. You don't have to mess with that, right? Just mark it as trash. Don't call them anymore. Mark them as do not call too. There's usually a feature that you don't accidentally text them, because then you look like a jerk. You don't want to be a jerk.
Right. And then are you, that could be something that could generate referral income though for those busy agents too. Or if you say, hey, give me the list, and if I convert anything, I'll pay you a referral on it. And no losers in that game either, right?
Right. Yeah, everybody wins with that.
Yeah, cool. So this is kind of an example of, this is your real budget for, is this for this last year?
Yeah, that's what I spent on each expense, really. Like,
Okay.
I tried one of my own Facebook ads. I think it ran, that $142. I got 0 leads from it. So I was like, oh, that's not a good idea. Maybe I'm not good at running my own Facebook ads.
Right.
Yeah.
And it looks like you're spending, so you're spending, $5,000 plus the field notes for your group texting.
Mm-hmm.
And I see my sound is, I'll turn my volume up. I don't know how to increase my sound, Sally. I apologize. I'll just speak louder to my microphone. Hopefully that helps. But basically, from your friends, social ad engine, those would be the things. So you're spending $6,000-$7,000 on your business to generate electronic leads and or the follow up from your friends, and pretty, I think that's a pretty realistic budget for what your income is, and so that's interesting to see the actual numbers. So before we get on, there's Bob Van Allen asks, do you track the average number of contacts / follow-up required and or the average number of months from lead to conversion? Do you do any tracking on that?
I don't track it like on a daily basis, but my database does have that data in it. So I can probably look that up and give you an idea. But one thing I do see that's really obvious, and I should send some screenshots if we don't have any handy. But you can see all the text messages that I send people. It's crazy, you guys. Like, at least every 2 weeks, I send 1,000 text messages, and it's usually every week. So I can actually see that, the number of text messages that I sent over the year is tens of thousands of text messages. Right. And then I can see the number of responses that I've received. But the best part is you can see how different people respond to different types of text messages. So the main text message that goes out every 2 weeks is, hi, how have you been doing? I haven't heard from you in a while. Here's an updated list of homes for sale in Spokane. Let me know if you want to take a look at any of these this weekend. Aaron Lennon, broker.
And you just post a link. You post a link in that text.
And then I post a link in that text message.
Right.
And then I'll get responses.
We're going to show example of that in a minute. Too.
Perfect. Yeah. And so then you'll get responses from people. Anything from, hey, I don't want your text message anymore, to, yeah, that sounds great. Let's meet up this weekend. I don't even know how to get started to buying a house. Like, that would be an ideal response. Right. But what you don't see, what most people don't see, are how many people click on that link. And that link goes to my DMG website. And I have a couple of tools, Google Analytics, which is a little bit overly complicated. And then there's a chat bot that I use called Talk To. Yep. And that really easily tracks everybody who visits the link that I send in my text message. So I can see that even though I only get 30 responses from those 1,000 text messages that go out, I only get 30 responses, but I get 200 clicks. And so 200 people went and looked at the homes, decided, oh, they don't want to mess with it, or they'll deal with it later. And so literally I'll send people 30 of those messages before they respond and say, oh yeah, I would like to look at a house, or these houses are not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something on acreage.
Right.
It doesn't matter what the response is, but it's like, that's strange. You never mentioned that on the other 30 messages I sent you, but today you're ready to start looking for a home on acreage. That's what I hear. And so I call them up and I'll just be like, hey, I'm so sorry. I've been sending you a list of houses and developments. I just sent you a list of houses on acreage. I'll give you a call tomorrow. See if you want to go take a look at some of them.
Right.
And then if they want to look at them, I'm like, great. Have you had a chance to get pre-approved yet? They're like, no. And I'm like, oh, we got to be pre-approved before we can look at them. But don't worry, I can get you pre-approved tonight so we can still go see those houses tomorrow morning. And then you have somebody run their approval application that night.
Yeah. So question, what are the components you feel are vital to successfully converting leads to closing?
Hmm.
And I might
I
have
think
a follow-up slide.
follow-up is really important, the most important part. So you have to call the lead right when it comes in. There's some stats out there. You have like an 85% higher chance of getting somebody to answer the phone if you call the lead within the first 5 minutes. And that would definitely be true. I've experienced that literally with every lead source that I've had. But a lot of people are busy, or they just clicked on it at lunchtime. And so you have to follow up with them again after a different time of day, and of course, text message. Nobody answers their phone first call anymore, rarely. So
Right.
a text message first is nice. A lot of like expert lead converters say not to text first because then they know you're a salesperson and they won't answer. But I've been established enough that I don't feel like I need to like, surprise call them, right? Like I'm far enough along that I only want to talk to people who are excited to talk to me about buying a house, and that's definitely not the case. Like I'm losing opportunities doing that, but I don't spend time, dialing a phone number,
Right.
people who don't want to be called.
Sure.
I text them, but I don't call them until I get a response because I have so many leads. It would take too long to call everybody.
Sure. And so, we got a question in the box that says, how many touches would you say to engage an e-lead? Does it depend on whether you're phone calling or just texting them? Like, do you feel like it takes a lot more texts to get a hold of them versus phone calls, or are they about the same, or do you have any sense?
I think they're about the same. I think, I wouldn't call somebody 3 times in one day.
No.
Just message them. If they don't respond to your text message, then maybe call after business hours. There's a huge number of people work nights though. So like, you never know what their work schedule is. And then you can try again the next day. I might try 5 times in a week or 6 times in a week easily enough, but I wouldn't do like 3 or 4 times in one day. That'd be a lot. Well, and if you're getting 50 leads, let's say you get, 15 leads in a day.
Right.
I mean, how are you going to make 5 calls to each of those? That would be too many.
Right. And you guys, I know we're running up on time. We're going to keep going. If you guys are okay with it, feel free. I am recording this and we will post the recording. I got the recording a little bit late, but we're getting the meat of the program in the recording. So just be aware of that. So the only other question that we have up in here, and again, we're going to be covering this in the next set of slides as well, is, can you share a bit about what your intro into a phone call would be when you call a lead? You've kind of done one already. What's a typical script that you use?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because keep in mind, I have a number of different lead sources. And so when I get the text message saying, hey, because DMG, I think, texts you when a new lead comes in.
Right.
I'm not 100% sure where that text message comes from now that I'm thinking about it, but I think it comes from DMG.
It does come from DMG, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So a new lead goes into DMG, it texts you and says, hey, John Doe just came in as a lead. I don't necessarily know what or where, and here's his phone number. So I click on that phone number and call immediately, because you want to call within the first 5 minutes. And so the way the script goes is, let's say he answers, and I say, hey, John, it's Aaron Lennon at Coldwell Banker. Yeah, I just got your information online about your interest in buying a home this year. And so I just wanted to get an idea of what you're looking for and how I can help. And then they tell you their whole story, right? They're like, I just got back from the vet, had to put my dog down, and I'm looking for a house with 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, and I really want an open concept, and I have $125,000 to spend. And you're like, oh, well, that budget's really low, and you're thinking to yourself, well, this is no good. And he's like, no, I've got that much cash. I don't know how to get a loan for a house. And you're like, oh, well, now we're talking. Like, oh, it's really too bad about the dog. What? How old was that dog? So, yeah.
Well, and I think to your point, And this is something that you really need to, and our audience really needs to understand. Don't assume people know what the hell they're doing,
Yeah,
right? There's
I've
so
I've
many
lost
people that
so
are,
many.
they don't get what lending's about, what they
Yeah.
have zero clue on anything. And we're kind of like, I think, and especially even some experienced agents are kind of intimidated to make those cold calls,
Yeah.
thinking that, oh, these people, they're gonna tell me no and be mean to me or whatever. And it's like,
Right.
so what? Just don't be a jerk to them and let it go
Yeah,
on those.
really.
But when you get to the yes, it's shocking at how
Yeah.
uneducated the public is, right?
Yeah, it's really amazing. I mean, I remember buying my first house. I had absolutely no clue at all about anything. I remember every part of the process being like extremely, I don't know if it was frustrating. It's just I had a lot of anxiety about every part of the process. And I thought that everybody was out to rip me off. And so I was trying to read over all the documents carefully, but there's so many documents, like it just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And then when I got to the end of it, I realized I really didn't need to be worrying about any of that because my agent had it handled. like,
right.
like he had it all handled. So
Yeah. So let's talk about your incoming lead process. And this is where we're going to touch on some of the tech as well for the audience. And this is kind of where we're getting closer to wrapping up here. But so tell us about your incoming lead process. What does that look like for you?
so the way it works is somebody signs up on a website. It might be my website, it might be a Facebook ad, and then whatever company published that ad gets the lead and emails it to me. Mm-hmm. I then, from my email, the lead gets forwarded to the CRM that I use for texting, which is Field Notes, and then another copy of it gets forwarded to DMG. Mm-hmm. At that point, DMG texts me, says, hey, the lead came in, and I call it. Then I follow up usually once a week in Field Notes with a mass text message to the last 1,000 leads that came in. And then that's kind of where the tracking process starts. If somebody answers the phone when I call them, then that immediately gets marked as a hot lead or a dead lead if they're not looking to buy a house. But it immediately gets marked as a hot lead, and they don't get my mass text messages. Once they respond, they don't get my mass text messages anymore. They get regular follow-ups just like you would with the Ninja program.
Got it. And you're using, and sorry, my slide kind of went a little long on this one. You're using Field Notes AI to do the text messaging. And this, because somebody asked this earlier, like how do you mass text people? That's the Field Notes AI, and that's cut off at the bottom of the screen there. That's $94.99 per month. So $95 a month to have that capability. And that comes with a real number. Now, Delta Media also offers a texting functionality, but it was more along the lines of you'd spend $25 for 1,000 texts or something to that effect. And so we are still sorting through that as a company to kind of offer that and present that out to agents. But just know there's a couple other options out there.
And that's worth it. I think the most important thing is to do something. Like you want to make sure you're texting everybody. And so you could just text them as they come in. I think most systems you can right click on a phone number and click a call button or click a text button, especially on Windows and Mac. I think you can set an application to open when you do that. And so you can actually have a text messaging application open on your computer that's connected to your phone. So there's a lot of tech stuff that you can work out to deal with that. So you don't have to pay. But I mean, $25 for 1,000 texts, that's probably within most people's risk tolerance, right? So you can try it, see if it works, how it works for you.
Yeah. And so here's some examples of leads you've gotten from different sources like HomeSnap and ZBuyer, and kind of what those leads look like. And all of these filter just in the next slide will show all of these filter. Basically, they have your lead source, and then they either route through your email and get filtered from there and then go into Field Notes and DeltaNet, or if the lead source allows you to put your direct addresses in, because you get a specific email address from Field Notes, and DeltaNet, you have a lead parser address associated with your profile. You can actually put those into the lead source, program to notify those two email addresses, and it would just go direct into those systems.
Yeah.
And you get notified, 10 ways to Sunday that it's happened. But the nice thing, I think, and what you're doing with DeltaNet, how you're leveraging DeltaNet back into this, is that those lead sources, when they come in, are getting assigned certain email campaigns to where they're getting something from you. Then
Right.
you're actually doing a search on your website in DeltaNet, where you're searching a subset of homes on your website, your DeltaNet website, and then you're making a bit.ly link with those search results, and that's what you're including in your text message. And so
Right.
we'll show you what that looks like. And I know this is a lot for people, some non-tech people. It's like, oh my God, I can't, there's no way. There's several ways to do this. We're probably gonna have another session just on the tech, and I can do some instructional videos along with that as well, to follow up, because this is some very interesting things, and it's all things we can do kind of for free with just what we're doing. And then if you pay for leads, you double down on that leveraging that technology. So, and then your talk to is the chat bot, and you turned me on this a long time ago. I have it on my website. Super cool.
Yeah, it's a good setup.
And then your Google Analytics. So let's talk about what we see as far as the ROI on this. So you don't do anything unless it's 5 times what you're spending.
Right.
So if I'm going to start spending $300 a month, how long do you think it'll take me to see a return?
Yeah, I think you should be able to convert leads within about 3 to 4 months. You should be able to have somebody under contract. It's not uncommon for people to not respond, and which a lot of people think's a bad lead. But if they're just not responding, there could be a million reasons why. So I don't consider it a bad lead until years go by with no response.
Sure.
At some point you have to I don't delete them from my database unless they ask to not be called anymore. Then I mark them as do not call. But otherwise, they'll just get the passive information. And you'd be surprised how many people after a year and a half, 2 years, come back and they're like, hey, I've been getting messages from you every month for the last 2 years, and I was just trying to get into this new career, or I just retired from the military, is what you get a lot in Spokane. I just finally retired from the military. I'm moving back to Spokane, and I want to buy a house from you. And that happens quite often.
Yeah. So, and Kelsey asked, can you expand on why you don't delete them? And I think you kind of just answered that question.
Yeah, I want to passively still be reaching out to those people. I might not be calling them, but I want to be emailing them. I want to be, doing a mass text message that goes out to see who's clicking, and so I think, I don't think there's any reason to delete them. I think, as long as you can manage it in your database, I think it's fine. Now, if you're keeping track of your leads in a spreadsheet or something, like your spreadsheet's getting really long, you can't see who to call, that's a legitimate problem. But in my database, if they're responsive, they get marked as hot. Those are the only people I'm putting any emotional energy into at all. Otherwise, they're just getting spammed with text messages and emails.
Right.
Until they buy or they die, as we like to say in business.
Right. And that's where you're leveraging Field Notes into that. And this is an example of something that you sent out there. And Field Notes tracks, by the way, the last time you contacted them and those types of things. So you can kind of keep that database organized to where you can know, okay, here's the group of people I need to contact this month or whatever your schedule is. But here's a great example where you your text message, hi Don, it's been a while since we checked in with you. Are you still thinking about buying a home this year? Here's a list what's currently available in the market. And this is where you put the bit.ly link that goes to your DMG site. And hey, do you need help getting pre-qualified? And then she didn't reply to you for like a month later.
No, actually, that's a year and a month later.
Oh, a year and a month later. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So she's had like 30 messages.
Right. Yeah. So the national statistics of at least 12 times, that's for amateurs.
Yeah.
You want to be varsity squad, you got to go to 30. Those guys only doing 12, they're giving up way too easy.
Yep.
So, but that's, and I do like the passivity of the text message. I get spam texts, and if it's something that I get weird ones from political stuff, and somebody was like block, whatever. Can you tell if somebody's blocked you, by the way?
I can't tell if somebody's blocked me. Okay. I don't think there's any like error reporting or anything like that. That's it. Because I think they still technically receive it. So I don't think there would even be an error on the technical side if that happened. But what I can see are people clicking on it. And so like I might be considered spam for some places. Like if I sent out 1,000 messages and then all of a sudden I couldn't see any clicks on my website, I would be pretty concerned that, I need to start calling cell phone companies, let them know I'm not, I'm not a scammer. They need to not block me, stuff like that.
Right.
And which is something you have to do sometimes. But for the most part, I think that as long as I'm seeing clicks on my link that I'm sending, you can see this one's a bit.ly link for a new homes on the market. Yep. And that's a search I have set up on my DMG website that just is all of the houses that are of status new.
Right. So. Yeah. Super cool. And I mean, and isn't that just bizarre that they would be getting these messages every month and be like, okay, blow it off. Oh, this month, I'm in. Like, what's going on?
Why haven't they blocked me is the question. Like 30 messages, like, come on.
And here's something that, and this is, same thing with emails, and I've reported this to people when I set up their email campaigns, their automatic email campaigns, is put your name in the address. Aaron just sold this home. Aaron just listed this home. Aaron, is having an open house or whatever. And even if people delete it, but they like you, they're not going to unsubscribe, and you make that impression. And it's the same thing with the texting you, right? You're tagging it properly with the brokerage and your name. And they're seeing that Aaron's active and out hustling and looking out for me, whether I want it or not. And if they don't want it, they're going to let you know. And if they don't, and you're still clicking, because a 20% click-through rate on 1,000, that's a big deal.
Right.
And the 3% response is about right. The 30, that makes that's probably about right. 2 to 3% is what you can expect immediately. But what's interesting is that the fostering of that 20% and what that can turn into as time goes on is really where probably the bulk of your return on investment is going to show up.
Yeah.
That longer term commitment. And so, I mean, is it fair to say you kind of backed off of, you still do this. I see you because I come in the office and I still see you pounding away on the keyboard and stuff. But you're not as aggressive as you once were with these. Is that
no? I used to call. I'd call the minute the text or the minute the lead came in. I would call later that day. I'd call the next day, and I would do that 12 times. And I'm definitely not as aggressive as I used to be on that, just because I don't like doing it.
Right.
Like it's worth it. I mean, I wouldn't have sold all those houses my first year if I wasn't doing that, so it does work. But I feel like, Ninja has a lot of other ways to get clients. And so this is just one way. And so I'm basically just taking the cream off the top for these leads, which is good enough in the Ninja environment, because I've got other cream leads that I'm taking. Like I've got friends and family, and I really do. I have some friends. And So then I've got referrals coming in from other agents in the in other areas of the state that especially like Seattle, people moving over here from Seattle. That agent will call me, hey, got so and so moving over there. I'm going to sell their house over here. Find them one over there, and so we've got a lot of other lead sources. This is just one lead source. Like
Sure.
if you've been in the business 5 years and you haven't sold anything, and now you're going to get into lead gen, like it might not help you, right? Like
Right.
you gotta, it's just one more thing, one
Right.
more way to get customers.
Sure. So long game, you talk about, hey, establish systems, monitor response and progress, and then expect traction to take, like with anything. I mean, I'm going to invest $300 a month. How long should I invest that $300 a month before I'm like, this is dumb? Or, when do you kind of give up on that?
Yeah, you really, part of it's lead quantity and the other part's lead quality. So if you're calling people and it just seems like nobody wants to buy a home, but you're getting a hold of them, that's a really good lead quality. Like
Yes.
maybe they don't want to buy a home.
Answering.
Yeah, eventually they're going to buy a home. Like,
Okay.
but if you're not getting any leads, so if you're not getting 30 leads a month for that $300, and you should be getting more, but if you're getting at least 30 leads a month, then that quantity is probably acceptable. You should be able to sell, a house every 3 months on that.
And I love what you just said. It's because we get so pent up on like, well, if they aren't ready to buy a house, like forget them, right? And you're like, if they answer the freaking phone, that is golden, right?
Right.
And
maybe you have something in common.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe you end up, finding out that you always go to the Gonzaga games and they always go to the Gonzaga game. So now you can touch base next time you go to a Gonzaga game.
Right.
And so there's these other things that
it's a rapport building opportunity that you use, and
Yeah.
then for eventually when they are in the marketplace.
Right.
That's awesome.
Well, and if they're a seller lead, like you have their address if they're a seller lead. So if you're getting seller leads, I mean, you can put those people from your friends. All of a sudden they're getting mail from you. You can stop by, drop off, Christmas ties or whatever we got going. I think seller leads are really great. They're so easy to work compared to buyer leads
because they're static, right? Exactly where they're at, and it's like
where they live. Yeah.
So what advice would you give agents considering implementing leads into their 2022 business that we haven't talked about already?
I'd say
I'd say
definitely look, at the very least, get your old list from your lenders. Like they owe you that, right? They're not calling them. They haven't given them to anybody else to call. You might as well be calling them. And so I would say that's the first place I would start, especially if I wasn't sure what to do. The next thing I would do is make sure you're listed. If you're a new agent, make sure somebody is listing you as second list agent on their listings. So you can, spend that $50 and start that advertising, and call every lead that comes in. Practice calling leads. Like you can call another real estate agent and do some role playing. It sounds stupid, but you really need a little bit of it's almost like an elevator speech, right? You got to get through, you got to let them know that who you are, and like legally you have to let them know who you are.
Right.
And what brokerage you're with, why you're calling, and you just don't want them to hang up on you, And so you just practice a little speech, and then make those calls, and try to get the free leads, and then buy the leads that are in your budget, and see where it goes from there. Hopefully you get a sale early on, then you can justify more expenses.
Right. And I think practicing that, that approach and because you've said some scripts already for us during this time, and it was very natural, right? You're like, hey, I'm Aaron from Coldwell Banker, so I got your information online. It looks like you're interested in buying houses here. How can I help you? And you just and you're just offering service, and the that kind of prospecting is daunting for a lot of people, because we feel like, oh, they're going to be mad, or we're going to impositioning them or whatever. But if you're really truly genuinely offering to help somebody, and you make that call about them and about their needs, it's not weird. You know what I mean? It's just not weird, and they don't think it's weird. So get over yourself and make the freaking call, right?
Yeah, it's worth making the call. Very few people are upset. Like I feel like the people who would be upset just don't answer the phone.
Sure. Yeah. And that's it. That was kind of, and so we're at the end here. We can wrap it up. Is there any other questions we have from the audience? I know we've kind of gone a little long today. Appreciate you guys' patience, and thank you, Aaron, for being so gracious with your time and energy and thoughts. It's been absolutely awesome session, and we will be getting this out to everyone so they have the recording, and just really appreciate everyone's participation today. And Aaron, I can't say enough about you. You're just you're a special guy, and we really appreciate you having the company and sharing your skill set with us. It's a
yeah, I'm happy to do it.
So, all right. So Aaron, if you want to, is it okay if people reach out to you direct?
Yeah.
If you have questions, at aaron@spokanespaces.com. Feel free if you have any questions. Aaron, like I say, we talked for an hour yesterday, and I feel like we just scratched the surface on a lot of these things. Yeah. So I know he has a lot to give, and we're probably going to come back and maybe do a couple more of these over the year to kind of touch on some different aspects. But again, really appreciate the time, my friend, and to everyone else on in Zoom land, thank you for attending, and we'll see you soon. Go sell some shit.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks a lot.
All right, thanks, Aaron.
Bye.
Okay, I just left the webinar, and so
yeah, that hour goes fast.
You guys did great, Aaron. You were so good.
Thanks. Yeah, a couple of people messaged me about how funny I was, and I thought that was interesting, because most of my clients tell me I should have been a comedian.
Well, I know that they would really look forward to you coming back and talking to more of the tech aspect of it.
Yeah, it's a big part of it. I spent a lot of time simplifying all of these processes, and I've been actually Mac and Windows free since 2012. So all the problems that people have on Mac and Windows operating systems, I don't even deal with. I just run a Chromebook. So.
All right. Well, thank you. I have to dash to a meeting, but I'm so appreciative of all your effort.
All right. Have a good one. Bye.